Our next guest was a part of a major upset in the UFC 196 main event, the boxing coach to Nate Diaz. Richard Perez, welcome back to Submission Radio.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming back on the show, Richard. We obviously spoke to you before the fight. Here we are now that Nate Diaz, a few weeks now since he's defeated Conor McGregor. I'm just wondering, that big win, what did it do for the boxing gym? What has it done for Richard Perez boxing?
It's done good. I've got people coming in still, and people coming down from, like a guy coming down from Oregon. They come and take a picture with me and congratulate me and Nathan, but Nathan wasn't here.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge moment. I'm just wondering, Richard, how does one celebrate such a big moment in his coaching career? I mean, you effectively coached Nate Diaz to a massive upset in the MMA world.
They had a party for him in Stockton, his hometown over there, and it was nice. It was really good. They gave him a plaque and they awarded him something, and they told him what a great job, and it was good.
There you go. Richard Perez getting down with the Diaz brothers. So, of course, we have to talk about that first fight before we look forward. So, one of the biggest questions is, when we spoke to you originally, you said that Nate Diaz was in good shape. Of course, one would say that going into a fight. Can you tell us, honestly, what kind of shape was Nate Diaz really in? Because it came out that he was potentially in Cabo, on a boat, sort of enjoying his time off. What kind of shape was Nate Diaz really in?
Well, he wasn't really in tip-top shape, but I mean, because he wasn't expecting a fight. But he was still training here and there, not as much, and then when they told us that he had a fight, he was in Cabo, he called me and I said, okay. He said, I'll be back and we'll start training. Next day he was here and we just did it. I mean, he was in tip-top shape. That's why, people take 2 week notice. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to win the fight, especially when they're fighting somebody that's, on top of the world, And, but I really had good doubts that he was going to win this fight, and so did he.
You did have doubts, or you didn't have doubts?
No, I knew he was going to win it. Just so did he, because the way we were training really good. He had sparring, not a whole bunch of sparring. I probably had like 3 days of sparring, and then he worked on mitts with me, and he did other stuff. But when he puts his mind to it, he does it. Just like I do when I train people. When I put my mind to it, I do it. There's no excuses at all. We just get in there and do it.
Obviously, Conor McGregor was coming in with a lot of confidence, and essentially the world bet against Nate Diaz. At what point did you feel the confidence that you say you knew Nate Diaz was going to win? At what point did you feel that? Was it before or was it when he called you and said he had the fight? Was it immediate, or was it once he sort of came in the gym and you started seeing what kind of shape he was in and started working out?
Yeah.
At what point did you feel he's got this?
About I say the fourth day, fourth day of the training. I could see it and feel it when he worked on the mitts, and sparred. When he sparred the second time, he went like 8 rounds of sparring.
Yeah, no, certainly. It was an interesting situation. I mean, we have to talk about the build-up to the fight. The press conference stare-down saw a hand punch from Conor McGregor, and in a lot of ways, me and Casper sort of thought back to the Ronda Rousey Holly Holm weigh-in at UFC 193 in Melbourne, where Rousey sort of bum-rushed home on stage. When you saw Conor McGregor hand-punched Nate Diaz, what kind of sign did that show you? Like, what kind of message did it send to you?
No, that's nothing. That doesn't mean anything. It's when you get in the cage. You can talk. You can talk all that talk. You can throw a punch at his hand. That doesn't scare Nathan, and that doesn't bother me at all. That's just something that he's just doing just for media or for the people out there to show that he ain't scared. But that doesn't make any difference. I mean, he did that, and that just made it worse for him because Nathan, he doesn't take any crap from anybody.
Sure. I mean, that's what we've seen from Nate over the years. A lot of people look at that punch and they say probably one of two things. Either Conor McGregor did it because he's trying to sell more tickets, or he was doing it because maybe Nate was in his head. Do you think there was any of that? Do you think Nate got in his head? No, he didn't get in his head?
No. Nobody can get it. I haven't seen anybody get Nathan's head yet. He loves that kind of stuff, He whether they're trying to play games with him or not, even if they're not, he doesn't care. He's out there to fight. He has his mind made up, and that's what he does. He goes out there and does it, no matter if the guy is really nice to him or being a jerk or talking smack. It doesn't make any difference because it's what Nathan wants, what he has in his mind and what's he going to do, and that's what makes him work.
Do you think that Nate Diaz got into Conor's head before that fight at all?
Oh yeah, heck yeah. When he told me he was on steroids, I mean, he blew up on that. If it would have been me, I would have been laughing. If I was fighting Nathan, he'd say, "Hey, you're on steroids, Richard." I said, and I'm not on steroids. I would have laughed about it and said, "Hey, give me some more." But when somebody is guilty about something, they stand up and they get a defensive zone on there, and they try to, "Oh, I'm not on it," blah, blah, blah. That's my point of view. I don't know about anybody else. That's my point of view.
I'm just curious because before the fight, we did an interview where you mentioned, hey, there might be a good chance that McGregor is on steroids because of his reaction and because of the way he looks. After the fight has been said and done, do you still question the fact whether or not he was on steroids?
Well, I'm not around him. Like I told you at the beginning, I said I'm not the one that really knows. But just by watching a guy come up from 145 to 170, you're gonna have some fat on you. Believe me, you can have some fat somewhere around your waist, somewhere. He didn't have any fat at all. He was solid muscle. So how are you gonna build that much in 2 weeks and be solid muscle? You know what I'm saying? Because he was supposed to fight at 155, but he was already overweight. I know he was. So when he found out that hurt his ankle, I don't know if he broke it, then he said he called Nathan out at 170. So that tells me right there that he couldn't get down the weight because something's making him build up.
But what I'm wondering, Richard, is now that the fight has been said and done, do you still have the same thoughts on it, or have your thoughts changed a little bit after seeing his performance?
Well, I'm not, like I say, I'm not the one that really knows about him, but to me, I feel like he's got to be on some kind of substance, to get built up, because he's a little guy, and a little guy can't get real bulky that quick. I mean, if they fight, they're gonna have like 3 months. That's fine. Nathan's gonna have plenty of time in camp to get in good shape. So McGregor's never seen Nathan in really good shape. He's seen him only half-assed. This is nothing. He wasn't even really in tip-top shape at all. And we knew that the first round was going to be real quick for McGregor. So Nathan and I, we worked on it and said, we talked about him going out there and not get carried away, don't get in a slugfest, move around. He got hit a couple times, but it was no big deal. He came back second round and he went out there and started letting them hands go, and that's what turned the whole thing around. Once he got hit in the face, it was over with, because then he couldn't take the punishment anymore. Just like McGregor said, I went to the ground, I couldn't take the punches, and when he went to the ground, that was a bigger mistake, because Nathan's great standing up and great on the ground.
Well, you've covered a fair few topics there, Richard, and we'll sort of go back to that a little bit later on. I'm just wondering, I guess, evaluate Nate's performance for us. Were you happy with it? Obviously, you're happy with the outcome, but were you happy with it? Because in that first round, Nate did get hit with a lot of big punches. Yeah,
but they didn't really hurt him, because if you notice, he was going with the punch. And his right eye was already cut from the first, when he fought Michael Johnson, so it wasn't, I don't think it was really completely healed. And it just opened up again, I mean, he was going with the punches. He didn't really get hurt at all. Even with the uppercut, I could see his head coming up. He went with it. And the body shot, it wasn't. The way McGregor threw it, it wasn't really effective. So, because Nathan was doing a really good job. Sure, he was getting hit, but not like he should have got hit. Now, in a better shape, it's going to be a lot harder for McGregor. A lot harder.
I'm just wondering, because a lot of people sort of looked at that fight as a very dominant round for McGregor. Was a part of you all surprised or nervous when you saw how dominant he was and how he was able to close the distance and land that many punches?
Well, he's a good fighter, but don't get me wrong, he's a great fighter, so we knew he was going to come out and we knew he was going to throw, because he's quick, he's pretty sharp, that's why he's up there, and that's why Nathan's up there, but they never give him credit, so until Nathan, put this guy in his place, and now Nathan, now they're looking at him, but they should have done that a long time ago with Nathan, because Nathan, he fights anybody. He don't back down from anybody. And he always gives a good show. He always gives a good show. He's not flaky. He don't give up. When McGregor went to the ground, he was on his back. Nathan was hitting him. He turned on his belly because he gave up. When a guy turns on his belly like that, it's over. He's quitting in MMA. I've seen that lots of times, and he just gave it up.
A lot of people are sort of criticizing McGregor for not sort of going out in that situation. He obviously got put in a rear naked choke and he tapped straight away. Do you think that sort of takes anything away from the fight? Because a lot of people are very critical about the fact that McGregor tapped and didn't actually go out.
Well, McGregor He's always like that. When you watch all his fights, he starts off pretty fast. He always goes at people right away. That's the way he fights. Because I watched 3 or 4 of his fights already in those 2 weeks. So we knew he was going to do that. So that's just the way he is. But if you watch the fight, the first round, yeah, everybody said McGregor took over, but Nathan was throwing the good shots. He threw the front kick to the body. He threw the jab to the body. He was hitting that body. He was hitting that body, and people are saying that McGregor got tired of throwing the punches. That's not it. Those punches that Nathan was throwing, and they don't notice that, but he was working that guy, even though it wasn't a whole lot. But the punches meant really good when he hit them. It really counted.
So I guess a lot of people, including ourselves, would have looked at the fight and sort of thought that McGregor gassed, but you're saying it was Nate Diaz's punches that sort of slowed him down. I guess most people watching that fight were surprised when he did look a lot tired in the second round. Did you expect that to happen, or was that something you were counting on, that this would be one of the first fights where McGregor would not really look his usual self in the second round, and Diaz would, certainly be the deciding factor behind that?
I've seen him fight McGregor. He does get a little tired in the later rounds, but not in the second round. He slows down, but the other guy slows down too. But when I see Nathan throwing the front kick to the body, picking his shots. He wasn't throwing a whole lot, but he was picking his shots. If you notice, he was working that body. Nobody was seeing it. They were just seeing him. McGregor's throwing punches, throwing the kick. But a lot of them didn't really land that good. Sure, he threw a lot. He was trying to land. He landed quite a bit of punches, but Nathan's were more Punisher. They were more they counted more than his. If you look at the fight, the first round again. I watched the first round when I was there. It was live, and I seen it. And when I noticed Nathan was throwing the front kicks and throwing the jab to the body, and working him, not hard, but just enough to make those punches count. And then McGregor coming at him at the same time too, he got tired. And then when Nathan caught him with that left hand, it was over.
I'm just wondering, Richard, what exactly was the game plan for that fight? Was the game plan to go out there and sort of wear Conor McGregor down slowly? And did you expect the fight to be over in the second round? Because I think a lot of people thought if Nate was going to win, he'd do it over 5 rounds, possibly in decision. Did you think it was going to finish so early?
Well, I figured Nathan would beat him in the later rounds. Either finish him or beat him or win him by decision, or get him on the ground. I was thinking he'd get him on the ground and tap him out, before he even threw any punches. I thought maybe he might get a chance to shoot on him, because McGregor's easier to take down. If you watch other fights, he gets taken down all the time. But those guys don't know how to finish that when they're on the ground. See, Nathan's the type of guy who will beat you standing up. Either you're going to make you go to the ground, or he'll take you to the ground. And that's the way Nathan fights. You can't stop that.
It was obvious that McGregor also gassed because of all the weight that he put on, all the muscle. I mean, it's a huge jump from featherweight all the way to welterweight. I mean, in hindsight, do you think McGregor going up to 170 was more of a detriment to him rather than Nate?
Well, he felt good. He felt good in that weight. That's why he took it, because he knew he felt strong, and he was working hard. Believe me, I seen his in the Facebook. I seen his workout techniques and stuff. He was doing good. I mean, he was looked like in tip-top shape. I watched him work. They had highlights on him, and I said, okay, all right. But we have our own thing too, so it's not just about him. Everybody's just saying all about him, but it's not. Nathan's a better fighter than him, a lot better fighter than him. Not because he's my fighter, it's because the way he trains and the way I train him.
I'm very curious. You mentioned that you were watching some of his training on the internet. Did you happen to have a chance to look at some of the movement training that he was doing, and what do you think about movement training that he was doing coming into the fight?
Well, that's the way he trains. Everybody has their own ways of training, and I'm not gonna criticize it because I don't know anything about it. I don't do it. I have my way of training, and they have their ways, and if they feel it's going to work, then they can do it. But once they get in the ring, in the cage, it's a whole different story, because we train to fight. And those things that they do, I don't know. I can't question that.
I've seen Nate Diaz in the past say that he's had a movement coach a long time, before Conor McGregor, saying that he's obviously watched the Hickson Gracie documentary, Choke, and he got the inspiration there to get a movement coach or something similar. I'm not sure how sort of familiar you are with it, but if you are, can you tell us sort of about Nate Diaz's movement training, if he has anything resembling a movement coach?
Movement training?
Yeah, I have seen Nate Diaz say that he's been doing something similar. Like, I don't know if he has a
Oh, yeah,
movement
he
coach.
does, but I wasn't going to say anything to you, but you brought it up. Yeah, he does.
Can you talk to us about that?
Well, I mean, that's for him to tell you, not that because I don't do that.
Certainly,
So
but I guess the question the Casper's trying to ask is, do you feel like it helps? Obviously, there's a lot of movement when you train Nate in the boxing, slips, head movement, footwork. Do you feel like a lot of Nate's movement is quite good, and also some of that movement training sort of plays into your training with him in terms of boxing?
Sure.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, let's move on and talk about what's next. A lot of people are sort of questioning what's going to be happening for Nate Diaz next. I'm just curious, Richard, there's a lot of fights being thrown out there. What kind of fight would you like to see for Diaz next? There's possible talks of a rematch with Conor McGregor, and also other people would like to possibly see him rematch Rafael Dos Anjos, obviously for the title. Who would you like to see Nate Diaz fight next?
Well, whatever pays more money, because we're tired of getting chump change. And he's been a good fighter. He's been up there on top. He's fought everybody, and don't get me wrong, but Dana White doesn't put out for the money. I mean, everybody loves watching the Diaz brothers, and they love watching Nathan. So, it's about time that, just like McGregor and everybody else, they want to get paid. He just don't want to fight anybody. Now that he's beat the best, let's pay him good. Let's give him good fights and give him good money.
Let's just quickly talk about this Rafael Dos Anjos fight before we move on to the more likely McGregor rematch. A lot of people are saying they don't want to see Nate Diaz do the rematch with RDA because he lost to him pretty recently in people's minds. If he did get a rematch with Rafael, how would you see the rematch going differently to the first time they fought?
It would be a lot different because he was hurt in that fight. In training camp, he got hurt, and he don't tell nobody. But he was hurt in the training camp, and he couldn't train for a while. I mean, for a while. I mean, most of the camp. I mean, he was pretty hurt, so that's why he went Dos Santos' way, because Nathan couldn't perform as good as he usually does. And if you watch the fight, you can tell he wasn't in on it. Even people ask me, "Hey, that wasn't Nathan." I said, "I know." So what happened? I told him, "Well, he got hurt in the camp. Why didn't he say? He don't say nothing. Fighters don't do that. They just go out there and do it." And if they lose, they try to come back.
I'm just curious, how serious was his injury? I mean, we have heard rumblings about the fact that he was hurt going into that one, but were you close to suggesting for him not to take the fight because the injury was so substantial on his performance?
Yeah, I did tell him that. He said, "No, I can't back out." I said, "You're right, but I just thought I'd ask you." He said, "I can't back out, Rich. This is a world title fight. I have to do it." I said, "Okay, all right."
What do you think about that mentality? Because at the time, it wasn't for a title. It was essentially just another fight. Nate Diaz hadn't been in the octagon for a while. What do you think about the mentality of taking a fight injured? Because obviously it didn't go Nate's way. Now here people are talking about how they may not want to see that rematch.
Oh, it'd be a good one. Believe me, if it was a rematch, it'd be a good one because Nathan was hurt. People don't know that. They only see what they see, which is fine. And Nathan don't want to say nothing. But I'm telling you, he was hurt. So that's why it went that way. Because people know how Nathan fights. And he don't fight like that. He just went the distance, and he slapped Dos Santos like 4 or 5 times when he was on his back. He even told Dos Santos when he slapped him, you can't take me out, I'm hurt. I'm injured. And Dos Santos couldn't do anything about it.
Well, yeah, we saw
that tells me a lot.
I was just going to say, we saw the Stockton slap in that fight. But I'm just thinking, in hindsight, do you regret Nate Diaz taking that fight? Do you think it would have been better for him to just, I guess, avoid that fight if he was that seriously injured?
No, I think he did the right thing. He's got to make the choices, and I have to go right with him. You have to follow with him and agree with him because I'm not going to say he shouldn't have done it because it's over and done with, and we're moving on. Now look where he's at. Sometimes it happens, you get injured. He's been injured a couple of the fights too, like when he fought Benson Henderson. He was hurt in that fight too, and he couldn't really do very much. Ross Thompson, that's another one. People don't see that, but I do because I train him. I'm with him. So, but he's a tough boy. He don't quit.
I'm just curious. Do you feel like if Nate Diaz is healthy, and you mentioned some of the losses that he had against Thompson and Henderson, and obviously RDA, do you feel like if Nate Diaz is healthy, he's able to beat anybody in the division? Yes.
Watch his fights. When he performs real good, he has no problem in the camp. You can see that. It's written all over him. That's why he took some time off. Because he was worried, fighting too much. So he decided to take some time off, and he came out real good. Now he beat Mike Johnson, who was supposed to be a good boxer. Oh, they talked really good. Nathan was underdog. He outboxed him, and then here comes McGregor. He's a golden boy. Blah, 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 the top. He's the top of the line, and I'm going, hey, what about Nathan? But they don't. They just see his bad performance when he's hurt, but they don't know that. And when he does good, he performs good. Like all those other fights that he's fought. Like that one time he fought 170. He stopped the guy in the first round. Maynard. He stopped Maynard. There's a lot of guys. I mean, when he's in good health, he performs really good. You'll see it. You can tell. When he doesn't perform good, then you need to look at him and say there's something wrong with Nathan. It's not Nathan.
Well, it seems like Nate Diaz sort of has his pick of really the lightweight division in a sense, and he's making a big comeback when a lot of people wrote him off. But you mentioned welterweight before. What do you think about the possibility of Nate Diaz fighting Robbie Lawler for the belt? Because that was another fight that was talked about not too long ago, that maybe at UFC 200 Nate Diaz would fight Robbie Lawler. Seems like a big money matchup. What do you think about that?
Well, you know why they're talking about it, because he beat McGregor. Nathan's not a 170 fighter. He's a 155. But the one time he took a 170, I think he did it a couple of times, because the manager he had, I guess, had him do it. I don't really remember what happened, but he took it. And but he's a 155. He likes fighting at 155. But now that he beat McGregor, and then they want Robbie Lawler should go after Nick, because Nick's the one who knocked him out in the second round. That should be a rematch. That shouldn't have anything to do with Nathan. It's like Nathan going for Dos Santos. That somebody's bringing this up about Robbie Lawler because Nathan beat McGregor at 170 when Robbie Lawler. They should be talking about Robbie Lawler fighting Nick. Nick's the one that embarrassed him. He was like 25-1 underdog, and he knocked him out in the second round.
So I guess, what do you think about Nate Diaz staying and fighting at 170? Because it sounds like you're leaning towards you would rather him stay at 155.
That's where he's comfortable at.
You wouldn't.
Not
you wouldn't,
me. That's where he's comfortable at.
If he was to fight for a belt, would you sort of advise him to maybe stay at 155? Would you be comfortable with him fighting a Robbie Lawler, not in terms of skill, but in terms of the fact that if he wins the belt, he'd have to stay in that division?
That's like I said. That's where he's comfortable at, and that's where he's been fighting at, and that's where he likes to fight at. And I'm with him. I'm right next to his side. They're just bringing that up at 170 because he beat McGregor. And Robbie Lawler, they like Robbie Lawler, so they want to put him in to make money when he should be fighting Nick to make money, because that would be a big money maker right there, because Nick knocked him out, and Robbie Lawler lost by Nick with the knockout, and Jake Shields tapped him out. Those are the only two losses I remember he lost, and the rest he's always won. So they were talking about that before, and all of a sudden now they're jumping to Nathan when it should be Nick, because they were talking about Nick before that's even happened, about Robbie Lawler fighting Nick. There was rumors going around, and then all of a sudden Nathan beats McGregor. Now they jump Robbie Lawler in there. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. So let me ask you something. If you could choose between the proposed matchups between RDA, Robbie, or Conor, which fight do you think would be best for Nate from a coach's perspective?
It's not for me to say. I mean, I'm just saying, where the money's at, and if they want to make money, they should see. What you're saying is what the media is saying. They want Robbie Lawler when Robbie Lawler should be fighting Nick. Because that's where the money maker should be, because Nick knocked him out, and they've seen Robbie Lawler been winning streak. It's like McGregor having a winning streak and beating everybody, and then he fights Nathan. Nathan stops him. Same thing with Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler's got a winning streak. Well, nobody's beating him, but who beat him before? Oh, Nick. Okay, well, you know what? Let's get a rematch. That should be a good fight because Nick knocked him out in the second round. Now they're jumping. I don't know who's doing this, but that's what I would do. I would say, you know what, let's try to get Nick out here to fight Robbie Lawler. And then have Nathan fight Dos Santos. Have them both on the card.
So I guess if we're talking about big money fights, ideally, what do you think is the biggest money fight for Nate? It doesn't sound like you're really loving the idea of Robbie Lawler. Would it be a Dos Anjos fight or a Conor McGregor for Nate Diaz?
I wouldn't know. I mean, I don't know. The media knows who where the money's at. That's That's what we want. We want with the money because we're tired of making chump change. So here, Nathan's on top of the world right now. He's got control. So now they have to come to him.
Yeah.
So whoever has, if Dana White comes up and says, we can make this much money, and Nathan should step there and say, you know what, I want $3 million, I want $4 million for a purse now, because he's been thrown around like stepchild, and then all of a sudden now he beat the top of the line, and now they should come to him and say, you know what, this is what we're going to do here. How do you feel about it? Treat him like they did McGregor.
Let me just quickly ask you, Richard, before we jump to this McGregor rematch. Obviously, Nate made $500,000 for that last-minute fight against McGregor. You're obviously from the boxing world. Do you think that was enough money that he got paid for that fight, or do you believe it should have been a lot more considering how big that fight actually was?
They should have offered him $1 million like they did to Santos. They should have given him $1 million because it was 2 weeks' notice, but they didn't do it. They thought he was going to lose, and so they offered him $500. And a pay-per-view, okay. I said, and he said he's going to take it. I said, okay, but I said, man, they should give you $1 million. He said, I know, but they're going to give it to me. But they should have, because it was 2 week notice. But that's the way they play. That's the name of the game, I guess. That's what they're doing. And then now Nathan shut the media up by dominating, and now it's his turn. Now it's Nathan's turn. So let's treat Nathan better than they did McGregor. Don't you think?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, $500,000 is the reported salary. We don't know what kind of bonuses Nate Diaz got. If I had to guess, I'd say he probably got one. McGregor did get the $1 million reported. What I want to know, Richard, is with Nate Diaz on a full training camp, how do you think the rematch goes? If you've got Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz doing the rematch at welterweight, apparently, do you think the fight ends quicker? How do you think it goes?
Well, you know my answer. What would your answer be?
I just told you. We'll see what Nate learns. We'll see what Conor learns.
And he has no injuries. He dominates. Dominates easy. He stops people, or he beats them. They don't have a chance. And McGregor had a full camp training, and he even moved up weight to get stronger. Nathan was out, enjoying himself, going to Cabo, eating and drinking and having fun, and they call him. So if that 2 weeks, if he dominated, it took him 2 weeks to dominate a guy that's undefeated, that's a golden boy, what do you think is going to happen in 3 months training?
Ariel Helwani reported that this fight would be happening at welterweight. I mean, nothing's been confirmed, nothing's been signed just yet, but welterweight seems like a very strange weight class to have both men, because obviously McGregor is a featherweight / wanting to go to lightweight, and Diaz fights best at lightweight. What would you think if this fight was at welterweight once again?
Well, what I see is that McGregor likes that weight. I guess he likes 170 for some reason. That's what I can think of. He feels comfortable.
What do you think it does for Nate? Do you think he fights better? Because obviously if he does fight true welterweights, he's got potentially a size disadvantage. But if he fights McGregor, he doesn't really have that. Do you think it works best for him that he doesn't have to make that weight cut?
Well, he's going to cut weight anyway, because he walks around a little heavier than that. So he's going to cut weight too. So I imagine they're both going to cut weight.
I'm just wondering, did he cut any weight for the first fight against McGregor? How much did he cut?
I can't remember who was. He did tell me. I can't remember. I want to say 185.
Because I remember when we spoke to you before the fight, you mentioned how he was on weight. He was at 170.
Oh yeah, because he was already training.
Right.
But before, when he called me at Cabo, I can't remember if he said he was 180 or 185. I can't remember.
So that would have been about 2 weeks before the fight. You're saying he was about 180, 185.
He might have been 180. Yeah.
Oh wow! In the last few days, do you know if he cut any water weight?
No, he was doing fine. He was still eating a little bit, and not starving, and he was drinking water and whatever he wanted to drink. I mean, he don't drink sodas or anything like that, but I mean, he had a meal.
Now, Richard, nothing's been confirmed yet with this rematch, but I'm just wondering, has Nate approached you? Have you heard any rumblings? Is this thing official? Has it actually been offered to Nate? Or at the moment, is this all just sort of hype built by the media, and there's nothing really on the table yet in terms of actually having this fight at UFC 200 with McGregor?
Well, there's no sign yet. There's no signed contract. He just said they told him that he might be fighting again, 170 McGregor. So I said okay. So he's planning on coming into the gym, next week and start working out just in case, whatever we get. He's not going to be just laying around.
Right. So the UFC did call him, and they did say that is a possibility.
Well, I don't know if UFC called him. I just know that he said that someone told. I don't remember who, because we're at the party and the music's so loud. I'm trying to listen to him. It wasn't easy to listen to. So he just said that, hey, I might be fighting McGregor again. I said okay. And ready. He goes, I'll be there next. He said I'll be there next week. I said okay. So that's next week, not this week, next week.
And this party, I'm just wondering, how long ago was that?
It was Friday.
Friday. Okay.
I'm just.
He told me he'd be there the week after. Yeah. So.
As we wrap up, Richard, final question. We love predictions here on the program. You mentioned the second fight would be very dominant for Diaz, but if you had to put a prediction on it, how would you see Diaz beating McGregor in this rematch?
Well, he would get the win. I know that.
How do you think we're doing? If we're doing official predictions, what would your pick be? Would it be another submission? Would it be a knockout or a TKO victory? And what round?
I can't predict that. I just know he'll get the win. I mean, that's as close a prediction I can get. I'm not going to say he's going to get a knockout and he gets a submission, or if he gets a submission, he gets a knockout. Then it's going to look. I'm going to look wrong. So I know he's going to get the win. That's all. I know he's going to get the win.
Yeah, no one could have predicted the first fight anyway, so that's absolutely fine, Richard. Again, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, especially considering that we spoke to you not too long ago. Guys, don't forget to check out Richard Perez Boxing on Facebook for more information. Check it out there, how you can train with Richard, and of course his fantastic boxing gym. Again, thank you so much for stopping by the show, Richard. It's a pleasure to chat to you.
Thank you for calling me. I appreciate it.